Great joy being back here on the channel Sylvia TV, and today, as you can see, I have Dave Wellington. Dave Wellington is very precious man of God, and but in my story of life as well, for the last 26 years since I met you.
Yep.
So you have been like a big brother, a father figure, and an inspiration, and a real channel of God's presence, which is the most important thing on earth. It's God's presence. So Dave, very welcome to Brazil. Very welcome to our little studio. I have been so long into recording English, so I have the privilege to have another British in the house.
Yay.
Wonderful. So greet our people and tell us a little bit about your life, and then I can tell as well what you have been as well part of my story.
Okay, so I grew up in a little city called Plymouth. It's famous for being the place where the Pilgrim Fathers left to found America.
Is that right?
Yeah, so there's a place there called the Mayflower Steps, which was their last point of contact with land before they sailed across the Atlantic. So that was a long time ago. So that's my home city, and
you were not born yet, but
I wasn't born then. No. Yes, I'm really that old. Yeah. So I grew up, went to school, did all the normal schooly stuff, went off to uni to study chemistry. Yes, that great science of sciences, and there I met my darling.
You had the chemistry with your wife.
Yeah, and there was because she studied physics, so there's a good physical attraction.
Chemistry.
So we met, we fell deeply in love, and we ended up, it was a lovely time, marvellous. And that was in Southampton, another coastal city on the south coast of England, beautiful place where a lot of the ocean liners would leave to go off and do, so I think Titanic
left
from Southampton.
That I remember, not the Titanic, I was not
on the film. And after that, we went back and we settled in Plymouth, although, as Liz said in her little story, we didn't really have jobs to go to. That was to come. And we ended up kind of making family life down there. But we went back because we felt God was doing something in the church there. And so we felt we would follow a sort of an interest in what God was doing rather than what job was doing. Because if you're in chemical industry in the UK, you wouldn't move to Plymouth. You would move to other places, not Plymouth. So it was like we were going against the grain, but we felt we're going with God, we're going for God, so God will be in it. And of course, He's blessed us in many ways. And we've had a great time growing up. I became connected with the church and became youth pastor there, and we grew a youth group from sort of a dozen or so folks up to about 40 or 50 young people, and all the way up through to young married couples and stuff. Loads of people who remain sort of friends with us, which is that's always nice.
Inheritance.
And then after that, we went off to Bible college. So it's like we did it the wrong way around. But then we did Bible college, and we went back there to work in amongst the younger folks, but also within music. So it was recognised even back at then. There was a great, I guess, anointing on me for music and for worship, and I was given a lot of responsibility then for that, and that was a lot of fun.
But when did music start in your life?
Very good question, Sylvia. I'm so glad you asked me that. Actually, it was only just recently I was talking to my mum. This is something I didn't know beforehand.
Wow.
I was talking to my mum, and she said what it was. I wasn't a planned pregnancy, so my mum and dad didn't intend to have me. But
they had other children.
I've got two older children. I had two older children, an older brother and an older sister. and who were great, lovely. But I wasn't planned, and my mum was wondering what was going on and all the rest of it. And my dad at that time was away travelling. He was on board ship and doing stuff around in the port and in the local area. And an angel came and spoke to my mum. Was like, Mum, you've never told me this before. And she came and she said, yeah, and he said, you've got to call him David because he's going to be a musician and he's going to bless lots of people. It's like, and I didn't know that. But I've always been a very precocious musical talent. I mean that in a nice sense, not in a kind of a horrible way. I was always, my ear to music was very attuned. And if we had a soloist at church and they sang off key, I'd be wincing. So it was like, yeah, that was, But I'd also say
I don't want to sing near you. I'm not going to sing near you, Dave.
But when we were kids, we would sing in a little kiddies cute trio, and I'd be the one singing all kinds of harmonies off in and around. It was
already there.
Yeah. So, but then as a teenager, I had a few piano lessons. As a teenager, my sister got a guitar, and she taught me the chord E minor. There we go. And once I'd learned that chord, I found another chord, then another chord, and another chord. So I was finding all these chords, and that's really cool. And sort of playing.
You want the guitar while you
and that became an interest for me. And then I began to find not just those chords, but tunes that connected them. So I started writing songs. They were just there. But it was, and then sort of in my later teen years at school, I got involved in a Christian band, and we thought we were awesome.
I'm sure you were.
We had a lot of fun, whether we were awesome or not, but again, it was a chance to write songs together, to perform together and learn a lot of stuff about music together, and that whole thing about performance and connecting with an audience and stuff. So we had a lot of fun. Yeah.
So when you said that you learned, studied a little bit of music, was reading music, like a proper piano lessons when you were little, like every mother normally tried to put their children on, or?
Well, that's very interesting because in England we go through a process called grades. So you start with grade 1, and if you follow the whole process, you get out the other end at grade 8. And there are other things
and
above
you become
grade 8. But
grade 8.
Also, there you go. But my piano teacher said to my parents, "Don't put him through grades; it will ruin his style." Quote. So I didn't ever do the grades. Instead, I learned some music, so I learned some of the technique and stuff, but I really don't read music.
Is that right? I always thought you do.
Because remember my ear?
Yes, it's very thin.
So what I would do is I'd look at the music, pretend I was reading it, but I was playing by ear. And so I would learn. So
you listen to the music, learn it.
Yeah. So my piano teacher would give us a piece of music to my sister, my brother, and to me, same piece. So I'd wait till my sister had, because she was usually the best of us. She'd learned it, and then I'd copy her. I got rumbled.
That's amazing.
I got rumbled on this because she learned a piece wrong. She was reading it wrong. And I played exactly the same thing. And so my piano teacher said, "So play that again." And she said, "You're not actually reading that, are you?" And I said, "No."
Oh, I love that.
It's my ear for music was always very strong. And so that these days, you don't need dots, you need chord charts, which are far more... They're smaller. They don't take up so much space. You can have them on your iPad.
Yeah,
it's all
right.
Good. Yeah.
Well, we are here in Brazil with the project, David. That we call it the rescuing music in the family life, in the household. And one of this objective of this project is literally to bring music back again to children, so that they have a taste of how good music is, and get again, like just an innovation to the school, so that maybe taking them out of the iPads and iPhones and things, and putting an instrument in their hands. So I think, like you as a child, you can remember how much the instrument was part of your daily life and how it helped you sometimes even get out of troubles because you were there with the music. Is that,
I
you
think
relate
so.
to that?
I relate to that, and I think it's a huge, we are very much bound by our technology. But when you think about it, a guitar is really a piece of old technology. A piano is a good old acoustic piano. It's technology. And the development of the piano is a whole nother story, and the digital piano is like, so there are technological things that might also play into that. But I think the biggest thing for me is, there is still something about grabbing a guitar or sitting at a real piano or playing a wind instrument or a violin or something that has more resonance with the human soul. And I think there's something to that as well, or if you like the electric guitar, plugging your guitar into an amplifier and going,
That's
yeah. So it's a rock and roll baby, but it's like, there is something about that that is very real and tangible that you don't get quite the same way by being in your computer and using a VST instrument or something on GarageBand or something. Those are possibles, but they're not quite the same thing, I don't think.
We are going back and forth here, but I want, David, we go back again to your story later, but you have already recorded some albums, and I really want that our audience have access to, you are in Spotify, you are there, isn't it? So
they're available worldwide. And they're available on every digital platform. So whether you download through iTunes or through Amazon Music, or whether you stream them on Spotify, Deezer, YouTube, Amazon again, more YouTube and Google stuff than, whatever way you would normally access your music online, I'm on there. So look me up, Dave Wellington.
Dave Wellington.
And various albums. The latest one is called Honor. And it's absolutely beautiful, some beautiful worship songs on there. And the one before that, which has one of my wifey's favourite songs called Sleepy Old Villages, is called
I want to listen to
Grace Chronicles. And those have both been released this year. One is, so Grace Chronicles are songs which are story songs. Honor are songs which are worship songs, which would sort of take you into the heart of Jesus, which isn't to say that the other ones aren't, because there's some at the end are just, that is so beautiful.
Yeah. So your first album, Send Us the Rain, Send Us the Rain, Lord, is that like you record those some of those songs again in a more different rhythm? But the first one, what year was that? When was? Do you remember? Because when I arrived in England in 1997. A friend, when I went to live in this house, she was playing your music. So I heard you before I met you.
There you go.
There you go.
Awesome. So it was actually recorded in 1995, and it was released then on cassette. Do you remember cassette?
Of course I do. I don't know.
Almost as soon as I got to KT, I was given leave to go down to a mastering studio and remaster that album from the DAT tape. So it was recorded digitally, but it was only released on cassette. And we then remastered it for CD. And so it was then available in 1997 on CD.
So I was there, the privilege of on the spot, So, but I would like to talk a little bit, Dave, what you mean, in my story, because I think whoever is listening to us, we need to value people that I believe God puts in our lives. We meet people every day. We meet people in different places, and every person has a purpose in every aspect of our lives. But there are some people that comes just to make the difference. As I spoke with your wife when we recorded together, I do remember very well that coming from Brazil, arriving in England without any English. So my first year was just trying to catch up with the language. So it's still very, very limited, but the music what I used to do here back in Brazil was to memorize songs in English. So then I pretend that I knew English by just singing it by heart. And that's what really caught when Pastor Colin Dye came to Brazil the first time in Goiânia. Because I always, in the Bible college, I was already doing Bible college at that time, the pastors would see me singing in English. And my dream one day was to go to England to learn the British English. I don't know when, maybe in heaven I will get the British accent. But I remember that the pastor came and said, can you go to the airport and with a group and practice some English songs and to welcome the team? So I was Colin Dye with 10 IBRL students and other pastors there with him. And I remember us singing, give thanks with a grateful heart. So all by heart, I knew it all here. And they come to talk to us. They said, no, speak English. Nothing. That's when he said, and he spoke to Adam Cueva. Do you remember Adam Cueva?
Adam, he's still there.
Really, Adam Cueva. And he said, get her name. And then I filled the paper so I could maybe get a sponsorship. You know, there was a... Anyway, 3 years later, I go to England. And I arrived there, not speaking the language, but then music is again the open door. And then when I start Bible college, then you were there ministering every morning to us, 7 a.m., 8, 9 a.m. I think. And then I remember that we used to do like, no, it's not a rotation. How do you call when one day one play? Because the students were the musicians. A rota. So then, and I remember that until it come my turn to play the guitar would be so long. And I remember seeing like a bass guitar there, just doing nothing. And then I go home and I learn. And I never forget that day that I spent until 2 o'clock in the morning learning this very difficult song on the bass of the guitar. And then I arrive there, get the bass, and I show you. And I say, Dave, listen to this. Dun, 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 dun. And you just go to the keys and say, stay there. And I stayed there in the bass guitar until the day I got married. So I end up just getting some few lessons here and there just to catch up. And I mean, I don't have a year like yours, but I could catch many things by ear as well. So that's what helped me. So I have this huge gratitude before the Lord, a grateful heart for you to believe in somebody who didn't even speak the language properly, but you just saw the potential and just gave me the opportunity. And I'm forever grateful. Thank you.
I mean, I think hearing you play and watching you had music in you. You know, that actually, and I suppose what I was recognizing was that here's someone who would, it doesn't matter what exact notes they were playing, they had the passion for the music.
Passion ahead, yes. I would go to the 4th service if I was allowed.
Well, I mean, I think Beethoven said, you know, the great composer said, to play a wrong note is excusable, to play without passion is unforgivable.
Whoa.
So I think that's a quote. If I got it wrong. Roll over. You know, but I think seeing and I think, you know, my faith in you was very justified. You know, here you are. You've got 4 wonderful children, all of whom are quite musical. And, you know, as we've been hanging around, it's just like the music's coming out of every which way. It's just like, it's brilliant. It's just like, love it.
But the other memory I will never forget about Dave is then when I spoke with his wife, recording with her, his 2 girls were my flower girls in my wedding. And then I come and say, Dave, would you play in our wedding? And he willing it, because it was a quite short notice, you know, it was not much time for people to, so only people who really loved us was able to leave London and coming all the way up to wherever we had the wedding. Suffolk, So, and then he comes with his whole family and he does the setup, Peter there on the drums. And then you had told me, you said, Sylvia, you know, you come and said, play the Ipanema Girl for me to, they said, you need to have like a Brazilian song. But then I thought, I'm not Ipanema Girl, so I don't feel comfortable to walk in with Ipanema Girl. He said, well, then think of something Brazilian. So then I thought of the national anthem. So I go in with the national anthem with the cassette. Did you remember that?
You sang your way down the aisle.
I did. I sang along with the team. But anyway, then we had like the worship was 5. It was like a revival tent because we didn't care how much people like or not. We just went to worship, wasn't it? Like let it flow was really precious. And these are moments and situations that we can never just think it's just by chance. You know, after all these years, now we reconnect. You come second time to visit us in Brazil. And so we really believe, like your wife said earlier, there is a new season where the Holy Spirit is at hand and working something that connecting us for eternity. So tell us anything else you would like to tell people about music, about Jesus, about worship.
Wow. I mean, how long have we got?
No, we are in a podcast here.
I think for me, seeing in sort of the Europe and America, there's been a bit of a shift in worship terms at the moment, and there's a lot of questions as to whose songs do we use and what style should we be playing in. And I think there is a sort of a general consensus almost that actually we seem to be stuck into a rut of it's got to sound this way, and a realization that actually no, we could break out of that. We should do a whole bunch of different stuff, because actually, you know, we're not an homogenous group in church. We you know, even in my relatively small church in Cheltenham, in the heart of, you know, the Cotswolds there in the UK, we still have about 20 or 30 different nationalities.
Wow.
You know, so how, you know, if we're only doing this one style of music, how are they embraced? How is their culture included in the music that we're worshipping with? And giving them a voice for sort of, because after all, you know, the Bible says every nation, every tribe, every tongue, and that has an impact. Well, if it's every culture, well, you can imagine if you've got some Brazilians in church, we've got to go crazy, man. You know, just like, you know, and same with the Nigerians. You know, it's like unleash the Nigerians. You know, and when we do the song Waymaker, which of course comes out of Nigeria, suddenly the place is like, it's like the breath of God is in the room. It's just awesomeness. So I think that's a beautiful change that we're going to be seeing over the next few years within the musical culture of worship. As people genuinely ask the question, not cynically, genuinely, is there something different that we could be doing, some other way that we can be praising, and those sort of questions, which I think that's an interesting one.
And God being a creative God, He gives us so much, freedom to explore His infinity of
And there's more to music than G, C, and D. You know.
There we go. Yeah. Well, David, I remember that when you came to Brazil a few times before you came to visit us here, and I remember when you came to São Paulo, you went to Mart for Jesus in São Paulo, and I remember God gave you a song there.
I wasn't there. No, it was here last time.
Here?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
In your house, just down the road.
No, but I do. So there's 2 songs here in Brazil, because I remember when you came back from Brazil and you came to the Bible college and said, "Oh, I went on my knees and then the Lord gave me."
Oh yeah. You know that was yeah. No, you're right. Eternal Love. That was
Eternal Love.
Yeah.
I remember.
And that's online. Yeah.
Well, would you kindly get a guitar and
I would kindly do that. Yes.
Some sound for us, and then we talk again and let it flow.
Okay, let's do that.
Would you like me to get the guitar for you?
Yes, please. Let me get. So this is a song I wrote when we came last time, not the time before.
Okay, that's perfect.
Set apart, loved and cherished by the one who owns my heart. Grateful that each day can be a brand new start. Thanks to your amazing saving grace. On my knees, pouring out my praise to you, my Lord and wanting to give thanks to you for everything. Moved to sing the worship of my soul. All for you, all for you, all for you, all of me for you, every moment in your presence, for your glory, Jesus, I'm available to you. Set apart, loved and cherished by the one who owns my heart. Grateful that each day can be a brand new start. Thanks to your amazing saving grace. On my knees, pouring out my praise to you, my Lord and King, wanting to give thanks to you for everything. Moved to sing the worship of my soul. All for you, all for you, all for you, all of me for you, every moment in your presence, for your glory, Jesus, I'm available to you. All for you, all for you, all for you, all of me for you, every moment in your presence, yeah, for your glory, Jesus, I'm available to you. Oh, oh, Jesus, I'm available to you.
Well, I don't know how you feel there, but I did feel it so so close here, the presence of Jesus, and that's our whole desire through our talk today, is that the presence of Jesus becomes the most important thing in your life, in your house, in wherever you are. And so I was just telling David here that he needs to come more often to Brazil, because every time he comes to Brazil, God gives him some songs. So that's wonderful. And you can indeed follow him there, Dave Wellington. Just find him and really download all the songs. It's hours and hours of songs that just takes you to the most sweet presence of Jesus. Not only his voice is sweet, but the sweet presence of Jesus comes along and does it all. So thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bless you.
Joy. Deep joy. Thank you. That is our. Thank you.